Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Chilltown Hoops. I'm your host, Jermaine. The youngsters call me OG. My friends call me J-Dub. Let's get to it. You know, when you get a better job, when you get into a better relationship, you go to a better school, there's things that you used to be able to get away with that you can't get away with now. When you're at that better job, you have to show up on time. You can't just walk in here like you did previous because there's more responsibility on you now. And they're watching you. So the things that you used to do that were acceptable there, they're not acceptable here. When you come to this new school, the stuff that you used to do there, it's not acceptable here. You're in this new relationship. The stuff that you used to do with your previous lady, you can't do that with this lady. And not because it's a bad thing, but because your relationship has been upgraded. So you have to upgrade yourself. You have to give a better effort. Otherwise, you're not going to be in that relationship long. You're not going to be in that school long. And you're not going to be at that job long. Well, the same idea goes for the playoffs. When the playoffs start, everything that you do wrong, every flaw that you have, it's going to get illuminated. Everything. So the stuff that you used to get away with in the past, you can't get away with that now. And the reason why you can't get away with that now is because the teams are better. The schemes are better. The coaching is better. The players are better. So the stuff that you got away with in the past, that's not going to fly now. So you have to get on board, and you have to get on board quickly. Otherwise, you're not going to last long. Absolutely not. So when I think about the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics yesterday, Lupe Fiasco got a song. It's called Superstar. And the hook goes, if you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear, because the camera's here and the lights are on and they want to show. So the Boston Celtics have the number one defense in the game. The number one defense in the game. Well, guess what? If you are what you say you are, a superstar, well, the lights are on and the camera's here. Prove it. And who better to prove it against than one of the best offenses in the game? Who better to prove it against than Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant? Who better to prove it against Steve Nash's schemes? Who better to prove it against than those guys? I'm not listening to the notion that Kevin Durant choked. No, he didn't. I thought that they did a great job defending him in the first half and in the second half. I thought they did a great job defending him in the second half. Absolutely. Here's a guy who they were face guarding him. They were keeping the ball away from him. They were able to get up in him. And when you get scorers like Kevin Durant, there's really not much that you can do once they get going. So the idea is to not let them get going. And how do you not let them get going? You keep the ball away from them. You keep them off balance. And you keep them off rhythm. And I thought the Boston Celtics did a good job at that. And when you get with Kyrie Irving has that kind of game where once he gets going, you have no shot. I mean, he had 18 in the fourth quarter. Once he gets going, you got no shot. So how do you counter Kyrie Irving? I think you counter him the same way you would counter any scorer. Go after him. And the way that the Boston Celtics went after him was in transition. That's the way you attack Kyrie Irving, in transition. Because it's bad enough that he doesn't want to defend in the half court. Kyrie Irving can't stay in a defensive stance for longer than 5 seconds. He won't defend longer than 5 seconds. But particularly go after him in transition. And the reason why you do that is because you're dealing with a guy whose team's philosophy is, I think I can hit you more than I can stop you from hitting me. Well, we don't think that way with the Boston Celtics. We think we can stop you from hitting us. And I think that they did that. I mean, we're talking about a Boston Celtic team who half the fourth quarter was gone and they didn't score. And that enabled Brooklyn to get back in the game. I'm 100% confident had the Brooklyn Nets not been able to score for half the fourth quarter, Boston would have blew that thing open. simply because of how they defend. Simply because of how they defend. So if you continue to attack Kyrie Irving on offense, particularly in transition, I mean, Jaylen Brown was very successful in that. Very successful in that. I am very excited to see how the Boston Celtics respond defensively in Game 2 to the effort that they had in Game 1. I'm very excited to see that because I thought that they did a great job in switching. I thought they did a great job in communicating. I thought they did a great job in keeping Kevin Durant off balance. I thought they did a great job in that. And I think that they could continue to do that. I'm not saying that they're going to shut a guy down. No, I'm not saying that. But I think that they can make it difficult on him. KD looks different to me. KD doesn't look like KD. He doesn't look sharp. He looks out of sorts. And defensively, I won't even get started on who Kevin Durant is. That play that I saw at the end where Jaylen Brown, where Jason Tatum dives to the basket. This is the stuff that happens when you're not a consistent defender. Where you lose the best offensive, you're responsible for the best offensive player on the other team. That's your job. And you lose that guy by ball watching. The reason why you lose that guy from ball watching is because you're not a consistent defender. You're not a guy who constantly watches your guy and being in the position that you should be in. Ball, you, man. You learn that in high school. Now, when I'm completely turned around and I'm not even paying attention to the guy that I'm supposed to be covering, who, by the way, is the best offensive player on the other team, I go away from the principles that I've learned since high school. And the reason why I go away from that is because I've never really been consistent as a defender anyway. So I had the Boston Celtics in 6 games in this series. I'm sticking to that. I'm really excited about this series, and I'm going to continue to watch it. The Philadelphia 76ers are handling Toronto, even with the injury that Toronto had for Scotty Barnes. Even if Scotty Barnes was healthy, I had them making quick work of the Toronto Raptors. And this is not something that's complicated. It isn't at all. I don't expect Maxey to go for 35 a game against Toronto, even though he clearly outplayed Van Fleet. And I think the difference in him outplaying Van Fleet is him in transition also. How he attacks Van Fleet in transition. He's a better athlete. I think he's got a really good mid-range game, and I think he can exploit a lot of their flaws defensively. But this doesn't have to be a situation where Doc Rivers has to match wits with Nick Nurse. They'll get themselves in trouble if he does that. They'll absolutely get themselves in trouble if he does that. We don't have to complicate this thing at all. Joel Embiid didn't play good at all, and they still handled them. So this is a situation that's very simple. We have Hakeem Olajuwon, you don't. That's going to be the difference in this series. We have him, and you do not. We don't have to complicate this thing with a bunch of different schemes and a bunch of different rotations. We got Olajuwon, you don't. That's going to be the difference in this series whatsoever. And I also feel the same way about Chicago and Milwaukee. I feel the same way about them. And the reason why I feel that way about them is because they just don't have enough to match Milwaukee. And they have no shot with DeRozan and Vooch going 15 for 54 or 52. They have no shot. When DeRozan's opening up the second half, going 1 for 7 and then going 1 for 7 again, I think 1 for 6 in the fourth quarter, you got no chance when he's playing that way. None whatsoever. Now, I saw what they tried to do with Giannis, where they were doubling him and getting the ball out of his hands. But Giannis is such a good playmaker. And he's got a bunch of D and 3 guys. Middleton, Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Drew Holiday. Guys who can make open shots and get to the basket. When you got guys like that on your team, you make it so much difficult. You put so much more pressure on the other team defensively that they can't really respond. Particularly a team like Chicago, they can't respond to that. So I think they're gonna make quick work of the Chicago Bulls. That series shouldn't go past 5. That Toronto 76ers series, I don't think it should go past 5. I don't expect Trae Young to miss 11 out of 12 shots again. I did expect a better effort from them, considering that they had just come off beating a really good Cleveland team that I thought was a playoff team. I did expect a better effort from them, considering Miami hadn't played in a week. They were rusty. I mean, they didn't get much from Bam. They didn't get much from Tyler Hero. And that effort from Bam, that's going to work against Atlanta. That's not going to work in the later rounds. Same thing with Tyler Hero. That effort that you got, that's going to work against Atlanta in game 1. That effort's not going to work going forward. We're not going to be viable. It's not going to happen. I thought that Miami did a really good job collectively as a unit defensively. I thought they did a really good job at that. And I'm really interested to see how this series goes moving forward. I mean, Kyle Lowry, he's the head of their attack, and he keeps them balanced. So the one series that I continue to harp on, and I'm going to stay on this, and this Minnesota-Memphis series is going to be a lot more competitive than you guys think. I had Memphis winning the series in 6, but I would not be surprised if this series went 7. And it goes back to what I said to you a little while ago about what Lupe Fiasco said. If you are who you say you are, Jaren Jackson is considered a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Well, show it to us. Show it to us. Because Cat went after him. And Cat went after him playing his game, which is what we discussed not too long ago. Cat's game is outside in. I start in the mid-range, I get that going, then I shoot the long ball, I get that going, and then now my game opens up completely because the defense now turns into an ocean. It just parts. And it just splits wide open. And he went after Jaren Jackson. And I'm not listening to the logic that, Jaren Jackson is young. This is the playoffs. This is absolutely the playoffs. So you either have to get it together or you will be shown the door. This is exactly what I mean when I say that the things that you got away with early, you will not be able to get away with that come playoff time, because we are going to expose you for who you are. I thought Malik Beasley gave them great minutes off the bench, and that's going to be the key for Minnesota in this series going forward. I think that this series is going to be a lot more competitive than what people thought, and I'm really excited for that series. Absolutely, I'm excited for that series. I think Phoenix should make quick work of New Orleans. I don't expect Chris Paul to go 30-10. I don't expect that at all. But I think that just him as a point guard, I think he outlasts that New Orleans team. He keeps his team balanced. Them going to Ayton, right? Them going to Book the way that they do. Their transition game is one of the best in the game. And Monty Williams is so good at making adjustments where he knows when to slow the game down and when to just turn Chris Paul loose, right? When to just turn Chris Paul loose and let him go. And I thought that he did I think Monty Williams does a phenomenal job at that. I'm excited to continue to watch that series, but I think they're gonna make quick work of them. No doubt about that. What I can't make sense of for the life of me, and maybe you guys can make sense of this for me, that when you got a guy on your team in Rudy Gobert who leads the league, he's at the top of the league in field goal percentage, and he's not a liability offensively. He's not a liability offensively. You can go to him, but you have to go to him a certain way. You have to go to him in transition because he's a rim runner. You have to go to him in pick and dive. And he's very effective when you go to him that way. The French national team showed us that. He's very effective when you do that. But when he's only getting one shot for the game, if you think that you guys are going to be able to win going forward with him only getting one shot, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. You have to involve him more in the offense. Have to. I can appreciate Donovan Mitchell doing what he did in the second half. I can appreciate Bog doing what he did in the second half. Mike Conley keeping them steady. You got to go to Rudy Moore in the second half. You have to go to Rudy Moore in the second game offensively. You have to. Because you're gonna, because what you're doing is you're lessening your chances to win when you got a guy that efficient offensively around the basket. You have to go to him more. You have to. And I'm gonna continue to harp on that until I'm blue in the face. You got to go to Rudy Moore. You have to go to him more. So the playoffs have started. I'm really excited about it, and we'll do this again really soon, guys. So until then, take it light, but take it.